You had me at smash.
Hulk smash!
The Incredible Hulk stars Edward Norton, William Hurt, Liv Tyler, and is directed by Louis Leterrier. Alright, so when I first started my channel, way early 2015, I was really inexperienced with reviewing movies. And I think my first mistake was I wanted to review a lot of my favorite movies or favorite franchises right out the gate. To be honest, I really just didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I started this series called Revisited. And the first movie I did was Halloween 6, because Halloween 6 was one of my first reviews, and that's one of my favorite Halloween movies, so I ended up re-reviewing that movie just because I wanted to add some more to it. I wanted to polish it up a bit. Anyway, another movie I did early in my review days was The Incredible Hulk, and this is one of my favorite comic book movies. If you want a cerebral, deep, layered crime drama experience, get The Dark Knight. But if you want just a fun, action, balls to the wall experience, then I say get The Incredible Hulk. And it's one of those MCU movies that seems to be rated near the bottom of the best of list on many people's list, but for me, it's one of my favorites, if not my favorite MCU film. Partly because I am just such a huge Hulk fanatic. I love the Hulk. I grew up with the Hulk. I used to watch the Hulk with my dad when I was a kid growing up. I grew up with the TV show with Bill Bixby. The Hulk is really just a big part of my life. And did I like the 2003 movie? No, not really. It really just did not deliver the Hulk experience that I wanted for a Hulk movie. So in this review, we're gonna delve pretty deep into the movie, the 2008 movie, The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton. So here we go. So like I mentioned before, the 2003 movie was more of an origin story, and it took a good long while, maybe 45 minutes, until we actually got to see the Hulk. And there was just all this exposition with, you know, the father, David Banner, played by Nick Nolte. I think it was just way too melodramatic for a lot of people, and myself included. I didn't enjoy the first Hulk movie that much. So this movie, they give you that origin story pretty much right at the beginning of the movie in the credits. And thank God they did that, because this movie gets going fast. And I love how the gamma radiation machine at the beginning of the movie is pretty much the exact same as the television series with Bill Bixby, which I thought was just a cool nod to the television series. This movie actually has a couple really cool nods to the television series. Another one being the theme. They use the Lonely Man theme in one of the scenes of this movie. But after the opening credits scene, right away we see that Bruce Banner is on the run. I believe he's in Rio de Janeiro, where they shot one of the Fast and the Furious movies. But this movie just really moves at a breakneck pace, and it feels like one of the Bourne Identity movies in some parts. Bruce Banner is just constantly on the go. He's trying to stay out of sight. He does not want to turn into the Hulk. And he's working as this handyman in this factory. And it just seems like trouble always finds the guy. That's the one thing that you could probably pick apart with the Hulk, is nobody has as much trouble coming at them as much as Bruce Banner. But if the trouble wasn't coming at him, then we wouldn't have our movie, really. But this is really just a simple plot synopsis. It's Bruce Banner, he starts in Rio de Janeiro. Thunderbolt Ross sends Blonsky to hunt him down. So Banner ends up back in the States, and he is really just on a mission to try to cure himself. And in the meantime, Blonsky, played by Tim Roth, becomes obsessed with the Hulk because he is never able to catch the guy. And in the meantime, he becomes Abomination. And then there's this big, huge fight at the end of this movie. And let me just tell you what I love so much about The Incredible Hulk. First off, the Hulk as a character has just always been so close at heart to me, because he kind of has a weakness like Daredevil has a weakness. Daredevil is blind. Well, the Hulk, he just has really major anger problems, and he has this condition, and every time he gets angry, he becomes the Hulk. And when he's the Hulk, he doesn't remember anything that happens. And the Hulk kills people. I mean, there is still a good nature within him, but the anger takes over, and a lot of times he can't control, you know, the damage that he causes because of this anger. And I think that's why so many people love the Hulk, because let's face it, everybody has bad days. Everybody gets angry. And what better a character to relate to than the Hulk? And the Hulk is just so cool because the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. And he is arguably one of the most powerful superheroes in all of comics. I mean, there's debates on the Hulk versus Superman. I personally think the Hulk could take Superman because the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets, like I said. But there's just so many variables, and you could have that discussion all day. But in the end, he is really one of the most powerful superheroes. You have an army, we have a Hulk. There's a reason Tony Stark said that. Now, getting back to the 2008 movie, what works so well about this movie is even when Bruce Banner is not the Hulk, the movie is still just compelling as hell. Look no further than the beginning of the movie when he is in Rio de Janeiro and Blonsky and his team are on the run chasing for Bruce Banner. The camera is just constantly moving. The camera never stops. And Bruce Banner is hauling ass. I mean, he is really having an oh shit moment. And I really like Blonsky's team too, because these aren't just your everyday soldiers. These guys are like spec ops soldiers. They are out to freaking kill. And there's a few scenes where you see Banner jumping from building to building, and one of the soldiers, he just falls between two of the buildings, and it's just like so fast. And that whole chase sequence, it's really just so intense. And I remember watching this in the theater and thinking, wow, this guy hasn't even turned into the Hulk yet, and I am gripping my seat. Now we're going to talk about the Hulk outs in this movie. Let's go ahead and talk about the first one, because every Hulk out is filmed completely different. And I love the tone and the atmosphere of the first Hulk out because they don't show you the Hulk really at all. You see shadows, you see images, but you definitely see how powerful this guy is. And I kind of refer to this section of the movie as the horror movie section. You can tell that as soon as the Hulk gets a hold of any of these guys, they are freaking dead. Like, I love the scene when he first changes and one of the thugs gets thrown through like 8 walls. This Hulk is not playing around. He picks up a forklift and throws it like it's a quarter. I just love every second of that first Hulk out. And I also love that scene where you hear him breathe, "Leave me alone." I remember the first couple times I watched the movie, I didn't really catch him saying that. And that's just another thing that's cool about the Hulk. He wants to be left alone. He does not want to be bothered. He is not like your normal superhero that's out for justice. No, he doesn't want any of that. He just wants you to leave him the hell alone because he is going to jack up your world if you don't. Okay, let's talk about Edward Norton for a minute. I think Bill Bixby is the best Bruce Banner ever, or David Banner as he's referred to in the television show. I don't think anybody could ever touch the way Bill Bixby handled that character. You could tell he loved playing David Banner. But cinematically, I think Edward Norton was the best. And Norton is a fan of the character. He does love the Hulk. He loves him so much that he became very anal about the script. He wanted there to be quite a few character building moments in this movie. And I remember when it first came out in the theaters, there was rumored to be a director's cut that was going to be like 30 minutes longer, but we never saw it. But that is the version that Edward Norton wanted made. And so there were so many disagreements behind the scenes. And I think that attributed to Norton not being in the Avengers. And every time I watch the Avengers, I constantly think, man, this would have been so freaking awesome if Norton was with the rest of this team. Plus, Norton is one of my favorite actors. I mean, Primal Fear, Fight Club. The guy is just such a great actor. You can't go wrong with Norton, and I think he is one of this generation's best actors. And he's such a serious type of actor, and I think that is the type of actor that you want for a character like Bruce Banner, because Bruce Banner is not a comedic type character at all. I don't mind Mark Ruffalo, but I just think Norton knocked it out of the park, really. Now, earlier in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there were quite a few people that were questioning whether this movie was canon. And I think partly because they changed actors from The Incredible Hulk to The Avengers. But this movie is definitely canon. I mean, Tony Stark himself, Robert Downey Jr., shows up at the end of the movie. And now we know it's canon because William Hurt, who plays Thunderbolt Ross, is actually going to be in Civil War. And I can't tell you how excited I am to see the return of Thunderbolt Ross. William Hurt, I think, is the perfect Ross. And Ross is such an interesting character because he is just obsessed with the Hulk. And I love those early scenes in the movie when he is explaining to Blonsky you know, the backstory of Bruce Banner and the whole super soldier serum. And this was really early in the MCU days. And I remember when he started talking about that stuff, it really just gave me goosebumps. Because before this, they really didn't talk about other comic book heroes that much, except for Iron Man right before. And Ross gives the super soldier serum to Blonsky, and Blonsky himself becomes kind of a Captain America type character. Okay, now let's talk about the second Hulk out, the college campus. This was just an onslaught, a freaking balls to the wall scene. I think out of all the MCU movies, this is still one of the best action scenes because the Hulk just kicks so much ass in this scene. And this is the first time we see the Hulk in full form in this movie. And there's a lot of controversy with this version of the Hulk because some say he looks way too CGI. But one thing I loved about him is I like that he looked younger. He also looked like he was kind of an inexperienced Hulk, more of a tortured Hulk, if you will. But I just love how you can see like his veins protruding and his musculature, I guess you could say. But he really just looked awesome in my mind. And I would have loved to see this Hulk in the Avengers. I think it would have been just so cool. But the college campus scene, you really see the power of the Hulk in full display. Especially during the sonic wave tank scene. For a second there, you think, hey, they're actually holding the Hulk back. But then when the Hulk sees that Betty is in danger and he just gets angrier and angrier, that scene was just so awesome because nothing can stop the guy. Okay, another thing I really loved about this movie was the character of the leader. The leader was known as Mr. Blue, and Bruce Banner was Mr. Green, and they were having all these conversations throughout the movie, and Mr. Blue wanted to meet. But once they finally meet, the leader, once he sees, you know, the power of the Hulk, he becomes obsessed with it, he becomes intoxicated with it, and he wants to get Bruce Banner's blood to eventually create his own Hulk army. And I would have loved to have seen a sequel to this movie to see where that storyline would have led. Because the leader is one of the really cool villains of the Hulk in the comics. And finally, we're going to talk about Abomination. Abomination is probably one of the best villains for the Hulk as far as sheer strength goes. I mean, toe to toe. The battle between these two guys is just legendary. And I thought Tim Roth did such a great job playing Blonsky. And he really, like the leader, became obsessed with the Hulk, and he wanted to be Abomination. And the final Hulk out. I love the way that scene played out because at that moment, Bruce Banner didn't know if he was cured or not because the leader had given him this serum. But then Abomination is let loose in the city and he's destroying Harlem. So Bruce Banner's like, hey, I got to do something about this. So he really just takes a gamble. You know, he jumps out of the plane, and at this moment, we don't know if he's going to turn into the Hulk or not. Okay, we really do know because you're not going to kill the Hulk. But that showdown, to me, still is one of the best third act finales of all the MCU movies. I just love that showdown so much. It's not too short, it's not too long, but you got two opponents that are both really interesting, both arguably the most powerful in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's a no-holds-barred fight. I mean, they are pulling no punches. I mean, the Hulk's even picking up police cars and using them as boxing gloves to fight Abomination. How cool is that? But again, when the Hulk sees that Betty's in danger, Hulk just ain't having it. And this is the first time cinematically that we've ever seen the Hulk say Hulk smash. And that's a really tough line to pull off. I mean, if not pulled off right, it could come off as really cheesy, but I thought they nailed it with the way that scene played out. And I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty emotional scene. And throughout all this rage and throughout all this power, you see that the Hulk still is just this vulnerable creature. That is his weakness. So I'm sure you guys can guess this movie to me is a Trapped on an Island. And I don't give that rating lightly. I truly enjoy this movie so much. It's still one of the MCU movies that I throw in the most. So guys, what are your thoughts on The Incredible Hulk? Looking forward to hearing them. And if you've stayed this long, then you're probably a Hulk fan too. Thank you so much. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my channel, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and Humdrum out.